Hello and welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Skull podcast, episode 70. We're really we're getting far into this. I'm your host John Scott, joined as always by my co-host Matt Essex. And Matt, how are you doing on a very rainy night? Well, my end anyway. I don't know about your end, but you might get that later. But how are you doing in any case?
Yeah, not bad really. It doesn't really matter too much about the rain, I guess. We're inside nice and warm, just, so we can just get on with the show, I guess, and start talking some wrestling. I guess we enjoy doing that, and what better way to spend a rainy night?
Exactly. Here in the UK, we're kind of used to this weather anyway, so I don't know why I'm saying it like it's anything new, really. I'm not too sure, but yeah, we've got a very packed night really of topics. Lots been going on in the last 7 days. We seem to have weeks like this where we just get like a flood of news bulletins coming in all at once, and this week's no different. We've got a few things coming up for sure that we're going to talk about, plus take all your emails. And don't forget, those of you that want to get in touch with the live show tonight, feel free to drop us an email at the Wrestling Skull podcast at gmail.com. We'll be happy to take any questions or any ideas that you have. Feel free to email us in. And so, yes, coming up on the show, we've got Goldberg Returns on Raw, live tonight, in fact. Coming up probably not too long after this podcast finishes. We're going to talk about John Cena's, the big speculation that's been going around about him possibly, there's a lot of speculation that, he's been pressured to be a heel. And on top of that, we also have the Survivor Series and how that's looking, the format at least, and Ronda Rousey returning to the UFC before the end of the year. So lots to talk about and more, no doubt. But Matt, I want to ask you a question straight off the bat, no pressure.
Yeah.
What to you is a bigger thing at the moment? Is it Goldberg returning to Raw or Ronda Rousey getting back in the octagon at UFC? I think it's late December. What's bigger for you?
Well, I've got to be honest. I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm going to say it's Ronda Rousey. I watch a heck of a lot more wrestling than I do UFC, but the Ronda Rousey return, I've been waiting for this for ages, I mean, we was all keeping an eye on her, watching her matches and thinking, wow, this is an amazing run that she's having. And then it was all suddenly taken, and then we were just left thinking, well now what, This women's division's been on fire. And, they've taken the main star away because she's not in the ring. But I've been waiting now for ages, and I can't wait for a return. It's going to be, I've got a feeling it's going to be good because she's going to be in the right frame of mind. She's going to want to take it back. But with Goldberg, I'm sure, he's got his fans, and he's a high impact kind of guy. But I was never really too sold on Goldberg. I never really was a fan of his kind of skills and that, and I didn't really like I don't like people that are built up to a point of godlike status in wrestling where they're hard to beat, to the point where you have to really, really cheat to do it. I mean, that didn't really work for me.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Ronda Rousey later on in the show, but let's kick things off because I did title this as the main sort of attraction for this podcast, which is the announcement of Goldberg coming back to WWE Raw tonight. Obviously, he's obvious. The likelihood is he will accept that challenge unless anything screwy happens, I guess. Possibly could happen to make it a bit longer because Survivor Series isn't till November. We possibly might get something like that. But Matt, I want to talk to you first. I mean, we got the announcement last week and Paul Heyman come out, and you know how much I've always rated Paul Heyman on the mic. I think he does a tremendous job, but I don't know if it was just me, but did you feel like when it was announced, it was a little bit flat, and then it got desperate when all of a sudden he started to do the Goldberg, to get people saying it. I mean, you've got to remember, I suppose, what's it, 12 years since he's been in the WWE, and this is probably quite. I mean, I'm not going to say the whole audience wouldn't know who Goldberg is, but it's not like WWE have ever really put much footage on Goldberg since he's left the company. They don't really rerun his stuff. you'd have to have the network and watch the Monday Night Wars, because his run in WWE previously, Matt, it's not really mentioned all that much. So do you think that WWE might have over sort of anticipated what the reaction was going to be like on this one? And was it done? I mean, him coming back like this, is this the best way to bring Goldberg in, do you think?
Yeah, I guess it's an okay way to bring him back in. It kind of it is a difficult thing to do when you bring someone like him back, because you've got to have a reason. It's been so long now. He's not just going to turn up, otherwise it look like, he's run out of money and he wants to come back. So you've got to have a reason for him to come back. So I guess, having one up on Brock makes sense, because we built him up now as Brock as a guy that doesn't like to actually be beaten by someone. He wants to have the last laugh in that kind of sense. So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's been an incredibly long time for Goldberg to be gone, and there's a whole new generation of fans now. I can see why Paul Heyman might have wanted to try and generate those chants and that, because maybe a lot of people might not be familiar with Goldberg. Maybe some people, needed some reminding of who this guy was. I mean, obviously, a lot of wrestling fans will always remember Goldberg, but I just think there's a whole new generation. Getting these chants going might generate some new fans, like they did with Ryback. People love a catchy catchphrase.
Yeah, talking of Ryback, I don't know if you heard, but there were a few Ryback chants during that. I don't know if you heard, which is ironic, really, isn't it? Considering what Ryback got through most of his career. It looks like they're going to be pretty screwed with him. The thing with me, Matt, I mean, talking about ways of bringing him back, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen, and I know everything when you script it looks great on paper. And to be honest with you, if I was a WWE writer and I'd have probably come up with something similar with Heyman coming out. But to me, I don't know what it is, but I think they should have perhaps gone with Goldberg just coming out on Raw, maybe unexpectedly, and teasing the possibility of who his opponent's going to be, to the point where the fans want to see it, not we're just going to get it and the inevitable is going to happen. You know what I mean? It seems a bit forced. But, I mean, if we go back to SummerSlam, Matt, we had a similar sort of situation where we had Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton just announced. There wasn't sort of a major reason. It just got announced, and that was the blockbuster match. This seems very similar. Brock Lesnar seems to be the guy that's just going to be pulled out for these blockbuster main events. But I think WWE... I think as much as this is an attraction, and me personally, I'm all for it because it's different. It's, of course, I'm not going to pass off having Goldberg come back. I did say last week that I didn't see. I think I scored this a 4 out of 10 of possibilities whether this was going to happen, because I saw Goldberg coming back, but just not against Brock. So I'm surprised they've gone that route. But we'll get to that in a second. But I've got a feeling they may have. I think that WWE, they've still got to do some work as to get people interested in this more. They just can't announce that, Goldberg's going to accept tonight and then, boom, we go right from there and the match is sealed, because, there's just got to be a little bit more to it. Now, I know, as far as the video game goes, by the way, we've had a lot of emails in about the video game, so we will talk about that at the end of the show. I know as far as the video game goes, Matt, it makes perfect sense timing-wise to have Brock Lesnar versus Bill Goldberg. But is it slightly too ironic that we're going to get that match? Because, we was talking about this sort of in the summer, about the potential likelihood of Goldberg and Brock. Then it was sort of teased a little bit, but nothing really come of it. The idea of having Goldberg, Brock Lesnar 2, as it's... I'm not sure they should build it up as number 2 so much, because if people go back and watch that first one, that might be a real put-off for this. But quite frankly, Matt, is this a match that is this a blockbuster match for you? Is this going to sell on itself, just having these two guys? I know Survivor Series is a big event. There is going to be more happening there. We're going to get to that later on the show as well. But as far as a main event kind of attraction match, is this a big blockbuster for you?
Well, I really like Brock, and I like his kind of dominating style in the ring. But I'm not too sure how that's going to work against Goldberg. So it's got me a little doubting of this match. I'm a massive fan of the actual traditional kind of Survivor Series matches. I would have to say I'm much more looking forward to them than I am this match, you know.
That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. Like me personally, I just think whoever's booking this match had better be using their brains, because if you go back to I don't want to talk about it too much, but WrestleMania 20, Matt, that wasn't exactly something to remember for the ages, was it? On paper,
it was WrestleMania.
Yeah, on paper this looked, gold, but in reality, what we got was just was just dreadful in a lot of ways. The reaction from the crowd, it didn't help the timing that both these guys weren't going to be around, and the match itself just never pulled off. I hope the one thing they definitely do in the match, Matt, is they just get into it straight away. They don't want to, you don't want to tease the idea of like who's the strongest. I don't want that kind of thing happening again, like test of power, because that was way overdone, unfortunately, in the first time. And I think for anyone that does know Goldberg, unfortunately, their last remaining memory is that match. So they've got to get off that very fast. They've got to set the tone early. And my suggestion would be start straight off from the bat. And, let's just get people's memories as far away from the first match as possible. I know it's early on. We're speculating early on. But for me, Matt, I'm going to go straight out and say this. There can be no other winner in this other than Brock Lesnar. For me, and that's from all kinds of point of views. I don't see any logical sense in a Goldberg victory here. What are you any different to that, Matt? And would you welcome the idea of a Goldberg win out of nowhere, or are you like me? You just can't see it on happening.
But for me, it has to be Brock that wins this. It has to be to make any logical sense. I don't suppose they're going to squeeze too much more out of Goldberg. He's quite advanced in his age, so I don't really see them like giving him the win, because this is what we've been questioning for a long time now. Who will be the guy that gets the win off of Brock? Because it's going to be a monumental achievement to do that. So that will be a huge push for whoever gets that. And I don't really think Goldberg needs that kind of push. People will just come in and it will be Goldberg, and then it will be great because everyone would just like him because he's Goldberg. He doesn't need a win off of Brock to actually further his career.
I'm with you there. I think this is the advantage WWE has, though, in that first match, Matt, is that because the result was Goldberg won, okay, you can build this match, first and foremost, that Goldberg has beat Brock. But also, the likelihood is Brock will win, and then it goes one apiece. And I guess, from what I understand so far, this is a one-off deal. But WWE has the potential, depending on how this does, to go to a rubber match, a third match, somewhere else down the line. Could even be Rumble, could be Mania, who knows, to pull that out of the hat and then go for that last one. But they don't have to do that, but the possibility is going to be there for them. Like, that's the only good thing about this, because had Brock have won that last match, then this would have been a bit more of a debate. But the fact is, they could stretch this a bit longer if they want. But I personally think they're going to have to see how well this does on paper. Do you see the same? Do you see a third match happening between the two?
Yeah, I definitely think it will have to be a case of watching this match, seeing how it goes. If it's the same as WrestleMania 20, then just